To follow along with a written version of this pattern and download the interactive PDF, use the links on screen now, in the description below, or by going to clubcrochet.com/seal. Hey there, it's Louie, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to crochet this adorably itsy bitsy minigurumi seal. It is so cool. It's only 59 stitches total, which means that it is part of our new minigurumi series. These are a series of patterns that are made in less than 100 stitches with no sewing at all. You can see some of the other ones in the background. We have little octopuses, squids, little hermit crabs. There's a whole bunch of different ones. There's little goblins, little gnomes. You can find them all at minigurumi.com. But in this video, we're going to be making our little tiny seal. This is also part of a different series that I have called Sandygurumi. It's a bunch of patterns that are made that are based on the beach. So we're making seals. We got bigger seals. This one I'm calling Bub, the beginner seal. That'll teach you how to crochet. We're also going to be making giant sea lions. Obviously, we're making hermit crabs. We're making little seagulls. We're making a sand castle. You can learn all about it at clubcrochet.com/sandy. But like I said, today we're making our seal itself. This pattern's super cool. And yeah, okay, a few things to go over before we get started. The first is this is not the most beginner friendly. I would say it's not super hard because it's so tiny to make. If you are a complete beginner, I suggest starting with our beginner seal pattern that you can find at clubcrochet.com/seal or our 101 series that you can find at crocheting101.com. That'll get you started and learn all the basics for how to crochet. If you need help beyond this video tutorial, go ahead and comment down below. You can join the live crochet alongs that I do every week where I'll crochet something together live. In fact, this video was made during a live crochet along. I made this one that you're going to be learning how to make on a live crochet along. So you can join those live. I use those as a great opportunity to teach people different parts if they get stuck, or just hang out with like-minded crocheters. To join those live crochet alongs, just like down below, subscribe to the channel, and hit the little bell icon so you don't miss when we come out with live streams. We do them every Friday around 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can also get help by joining the Discord channel and Facebook group linked in the description. There is a left-handed and right-handed version of this video available, so use the one that works best for you, and time codes so you can quickly jump around in this tutorial to jump straight to different parts of the pattern. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about before we get hooking is the materials that you're going to need to crochet this pattern along with me. For this pattern, you're going to need the following materials. Let's start with the yarn. We're going to be using worsted weight yarn and 100% cotton, but you can use any kind of yarn that you want. Just make sure that you have the right crochet hook for it. For us, we're going to be using our gray yarn for this pattern using our Amigurumi cotton yarn. And for our crochet hook, we're going to be using a size G 4mm crochet hook. It's just the best size hook to use with the yarn we're going to be using. But if you're using something like blanket yarn, you might want up to a size H or J crochet hook. Depends on the yarn. Outside of the hook and yarn, you're going to need some scissors for cutting stuff. You also need some safety eyes. I'm going to be using 6mm safety eyes in this video. And you will also need a small, just a little bitty amount of black yarn to add our nose. To add the nose, you also might want a darning needle. You might want a little crimped end like that. You don't really need it. You can use your crochet hook instead if you want, but this does help you sew your piece closed as well. You don't actually need to sew any pieces together though, because it is a minigurumi pattern. All right, if you want to get a kit with all the materials you need, you can find links in the description. Please, again, make sure to like and subscribe down below. Learn more and become a member at clubcrochet.com. And yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. All right, let's get hooking. Okay, so to crochet our little tiny seal, we're gonna need our gray yarn. And we're gonna start with a magic loop. Now, if you haven't made a magic loop before, here's a quick tutorial. You need the yarn facing downwards towards the ground like that. Hold it with your middle finger and thumb, pinching it like so, and go around your index finger and middle finger 2 times to create an X on the front and 2 parallel lines on the back. I'll put a link to a longer tutorial for that, by the way, in the pattern up here on the corner, or on our website. You can go to clubcrochet.com/loop. Okay. So once you have your magic loop like this, you want the back of your hand facing you. There's 2 parallel lines, and take your crochet hook. We'll go under the first bar and hook onto the second one. Pull it under the first and loop it around like that to create a little loop on the end of your crochet hook. Now we're going to skip that first bar, hook onto the second one, place it over the crochet hook with your index finger, and then we're going to pull it through the chain to through the loop to create a chain. It's easiest to kind of twist and scoop. Okay, so that's how to make the magic loop, which is extremely useful. There's a whole bunch of different ways to do it though. That's just my favorite. All right, we're gonna start round 1 for our minigurumi seal by single crocheting 8 times into the magic loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, like that. Now before I pull it tight to close it, let's go ahead and grab just a little stitch marker. This should work. Some yarn in a different color, and we're just gonna place it right in the center, and then I can pull this tight, and it should tighten around that end as well. All right, I'm gonna pull my stitch marker over to keep track of the ends of our rounds there, and we're gonna continue on to round 2. In round 2, we're gonna work around this tail end to just keep it locked into place and to hide it on the inside. And round 2 is gonna be 1 single crochet into the first stitch, so we're gonna go into that first one right here, kind of wiggle our way in there. The first one's always the hardest, and we're just gonna do a single crochet, but we're also gonna take this tail end here, place it over our crochet hook as we do that single crochet, so that way it kind of locks it into place. So 1 single crochet in the first stitch. Then we're gonna do an increase into the next stitch. So right here into the next one, we're gonna do 2 single crochets in the same stitch. There's 1, and then in the same exact stitch right here will be 2. All right, after doing that increase, we're going to do 2 more single crochets. Still working around our tail end as we do 1, and don't worry about that. That's just our little stitch marker poking through. Fix that. So there's 1, and then 2 is gonna be right here, like that. Next, we're gonna do a bump. Now a bump is basically a bobble stitch, but with just 2 repeats in a row. So we yarn over, and then we go into our next stitch right here. I'm not gonna work around our tail end anymore because it's getting in our way. We're gonna yarn over, go into our next stitch right here, yarn over again, and pull it through the stitch. You should have 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over, and pull through just 2 of those loops, 1 and 2. And then we're gonna repeat that whole process 1 more time. Yarn over, into the same stitch, yarn over and pull it under, going over this stitch, yarn over and pull through 2, just 1 and 2, like that. To finish up a bump, we yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook like that. And there we go, we got a little bump. We want to do 2 of those bumps in a row. So there's 1, we'll do another one right here, yarn over, into the next stitch, pull through, yarn over, and pull through 2, 1 and 2. And we'll repeat that process again, yarn over, same stitch, yarn over and pull it through, going over the stitch, yarn over, and pull through 2, 1 and 2. There we go. And then we can finish up the bump by yarning over it and pulling through all 3 of those loops. To finish this round up, we're just going to do a single crochet into the next stitch over right here. So just 1 single crochet in the next. Like that. And then 1 increase into the stitch after right here. So that means 2 in the same stitch. 1 and 2, like so. And that's going to be the end of our round. Let's pull our stitch markers over and pull our stitch marker up. And now we can continue on to round 3. For round 3, we're just going to do a single crochet into every stitch around. Before I start that though, let's go ahead and cut this tail end. We don't really need it at all anymore. We can use it for stuffing later on. But for round 3, we just need to do a single crochet into every stitch all the way around. There should still be, 10 stitches around. So if you want to count your stitches, you should end up at 10 at the end of round 3. 3 and 4, there's 5. And when you get to these bumps, look for these 2 loops at the very top there. That's going to be where you want to work your single crochet, just like that. 1 and 2, and just a few more. 1, 2, and then 1 last stitch will be right there. That should be 10 total. And that was the end of round 3. Okay, so for round 4, we're going to be making our tail and fin in this round. We have 2 fins on either side of the body and a tail on the back. We'll pull our stitch marker up to get started. But when we work our little tails and fins, it's going to be easiest to work into the back loops of the chains for a cleaner edge. I'm going to show you that when we get there though. All right, so we're going to start with round 4 by single crocheting 2. So we're going to skip our little stitch marker there, and we're going to do 1 into that first one, and then 2 right there. So just easy start, single crochet 2. Now we're going to make our tail. For the tail, we're going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're going to skip our first 2 chains. So we're going to skip these first 2, and we're going to make a half double crochet into the 3rd chain from the hook. Now, like I said a second ago, it's easiest to work into the back loops there to make a cleaner edge. So we're going to yarn over for a half double crochet, skip these 2 chains, and then work into this back bump right there on the back of the chain to make a cleaner edge. Then we'll yarn over, pull it through that back bump, yarn over again, and pull through all the loops on the hook. 1, 2, 3, like that. Now we're going to go into the next back bump right there and do a slip stitch into that stitch right here. Just like that. Pull through and then pull through the loop on the hook. It's pretty good. See, it's a little half of our little tail right there. Now we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, and 3. We want to skip these first 2 chains, and then we'll half double crochet into the back bump of the 3rd chain. 1, 2, 3, right there, just like that. And we're doing a half double crochet there. So we pull through. Oopsies, let's try that again. Go into that bump, pull through, and now you should have 3 loops on the hook. And we'll go 1, 2, and 3, like that. To finish this tail up, we just want to slip stitch into the same stitch that we slip stitched into before. So right here, you can kind of see it's open. You can see my finger through it. We're going to go into that stitch, pull through, and pull through like that. There we go. And that's our little tail. Okay. So after making our tail, we want to single crochet 3 times before we get to our first fin. Our last single crochet was right here. You can kind of see it. So this was where our single crochet was before our tail. So our next one's going to be right here. And we're going to do 3 single crochets in a row starting there. So there's 1, 2, and then 3 will be right here. Okay, so you see our little tail came together. Next, we want to make our first of 2 fins. To make our fin, we're going to start by chaining 3. So 1, 2, and 3. We're going to skip our first 2 chains and then half double crochet into the back bump of that 3rd chain from the hook. So we yarn over, find that first chain that we made right here, 3rd from the hook, right there, and we're going to yarn over, pull it through that chain, then yarn over again and pull through all 3 loops. 1, 2, and 3, like that. All right, and that's going to be how to make a fin, nice and easy. After making our fin, we're going to single crochet 4 times before we make our second fin. So this is the stitch that we just that we made our single crochet in before we made our fins. So our next one's going to be right here. And we're just going to do 4 single crochets across. 1, 2, 3, and 4. There we go. Now we're going to make another fin over here. Same exact way. We're going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. Skip the first 2 chains, and we're going to half double crochet in the back bump of that 3rd chain from the hook right there, like that. Yarn over, pull through that back loop, yarn over again, and pull through 1, 2, and 3. And there's our second fin. To finish up this round 4, we're just going to single crochet 1 time into the last stitch right here. 1 and 2. That's going to be the end of round 5. You can kind of see our little seal coming together there. Yeah, I think it's looking pretty good. For round 5, we're going to pull our stitch marker up, and we're going to just single crochet into each stitch around. We just want to work around our tail and our fins. So we're only going to be working our single crochets into the single crochet stitches that we made in our last round. So we're going to start the first one right here, and there should still be just 10 single crochets around. So there's 1 and 2. Those ones are pretty obvious. Now when we get to the tail here, the best way to do this is pull our loop out really far like that, then pull the tail out of the way, and then get your crochet hook into that next stitch right after the tail right here. Then yarn over, pull it through that stitch, and then pull everything tighter so that the loop gets tightened. And that way the tail, see the tail is now on the outside of our piece. And then we'll yarn over again and pull through 2 to finish that single crochet and leave that tail on the outside. Look how cute. All right, so there's our next one. Let's just keep single crocheting around. We're gonna do the same thing when we get to this fin. Should be 3 single crochets and then we're at our fin. This one, I'm pulling my loop out, pulling my fin to the front, going into the next stitch here, yarning over and pulling it through. And then we'll pull through tighter to keep it on the outside and then finish that single crochet. See, and then we got our fin on the outside too. All right, let's keep going now. 1, 2, 3, pull our loop out into the next stitch here, yarn over and pull it through, keep that fin on the outside and then pull tighter to go around the fin and pull through 2. And that is going to be the end of round 5 with all of our single crochets around. And we just have one more round to go before we start adding our face and sewing it closed. So we're actually almost done. I'm gonna leave our stitch marker on the outside because we can tell that's the end of our round anyhow. And that way it'll be easier for us to remove at the end of our round as well. Okay, so now we're on to round 6, which is our last round. For round 6, we're gonna start by invisible decreasing 2, and then we're gonna single crochet 6 more times to get to the end of this round, which will be 8 stitches total. So we're gonna start by invisible decreasing 2. If you don't know how to invisible decrease, you can use any kind of decrease you want. I just really like the invisible decrease. We're gonna take our crochet hook, go into the front loops only of the next 2 stitches. So this is the first front loop. Here's the second front loop, just like that. And then we yarn over, pull through those 2 front loops, then yarn over again and pull through the 2 loops on the hook like that. That's gonna be our invisible decrease. We're gonna do 2 of those in a row. So there's 1, our next one's gonna be right here, front loop, and then single crochet 1, 2, pull a little tighter, pull through 2. And then we're gonna finish this round up with just single crochets into the last 6 stitches. So here's the next one right there. There's 1, and notice how I'm kind of like, because it's so tiny now, I'm poking downwards into the body and then poking up through the hole. So I poke down into the body, make sure I get under both those loops, and then I poke it out the hole. Just makes it a little bit easier to get into the stitches in the right way. Down, up, out, and then do our single crochet. Down, up, single crochet. Last stitch right here. 1 last single crochet, and then all we need to do is cut the yarn. You do not need a very long end. This is just going to be for sewing it closed, and we're just going to pull it all the way through like that. All right, and that's just going to be for sewing it closed, and there we go. We're done with our seal. Oh wait, we're forgetting a bunch of other things. We need to add our eyes now. We need to add the nose at the top, and of course we need to sew it closed. But let's start by pulling our stitch marker out. So I'm just gonna pull out from the base right here, and it should just pull right out like that. Makes that easy. Now we're gonna add our eyes. Now, the best place that I found to add the eyes, it's a weird stitch, but it's actually my favorite spot to add the eyes. It's gonna be right into the center of this stitch, right next to these bumps. So right there, into that stitch and into that stitch. Now when I say in the center, I don't mean this right here between these 2 stitches. See, like these are both stitches. You can tell the stitches, see these little V's? These are stitches. I want to go in between that V itself, right there. So I poke my needle right into that. It's just a perfect place to place the eye for this. So I place my needle into that just like that. Sometimes I like to take the back of my needle too and just go right into there and then twist it like this. And what it's gonna do is gonna create more of a gap. See, we kind of like have a little bit more of a space in between that stitch so that we can work an eye in there. We're gonna use 6mm eyes in this video. So I'm gonna pull 2 of these 6mm eyes out and 2 little locking mechanisms. And we're gonna take the back of this, place it right where that hole that we made was, right like that. And then I'm just gonna wiggle it in. Okay, this can be difficult. If it's giving you even more difficulty, like right now it's kind of giving me a little difficulty, I could probably jam it in there. Take your crochet hook though. You can also use your crochet hook to go in between those stitches like that, and it creates even more of a, hold on, let's get my crochet hook out of there now. There, see, now that's even more of a gap. And then we just wiggle, wiggle, wiggle until it's in there. All right, so there's our first eye. Now we're gonna do the same on this stitch on the other side right here. So right in between these two loops, like that. There we go, you see that little hole that we just left? Place right there. And wiggle, 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 wiggle. There we go. The more you wiggle it, the easier it is. All right, so there's our eyes in place. Now we just need to lock them in. This can be a little difficult when it's this small. You just kind of have to work your way in. It might be easier to add your eyes before this part of the round, just because it's like kind of hard to get your fingies in the inside of your piece. So you kind of got to do it with feeling, but you can kind of see it. See that little back of our eye right there? Just want to place this locking mechanism on that back and just lock it in there. So there's one locked in. Let's see if I can do that same thing. So have that eye poking out. Where's the other locking bit? There it is. I gotta get it. There it is. I can feel it. All right, so there's the other spot. I don't know if you can see that on camera or not. Right there. But there we go. Locked in place. And, oops. I just want to make sure that's on the inside. All right, so there's our eyes locked into place. Last thing I want to do is add a nose. Now I found there's two spots to add this nose. First off, we're just using some black yarn. That's it. I don't need to make it too complicated. So we're going to thread that onto our needle, and there's two places that I found to add the nose. So here are the two options here. Now, I kind of like this one a little bit more. That's like right on top of the nose. I don't know why, I just think it's really cute. But you can do it right in the front between those bobble stitches as well. So you kind of have two different options there. So let me show you, first I'll show you this one because it's a little bit easier to see where that is, and then we'll show you the other one. So for the one more on the front of the nose, you want to go right in the center of these stitches in the middle of this bump. Right there, so right there, see? So I go right into there, and then I'll thread out my yarn, pull it on the other end, and put it into right here. And then sometimes I double it up, and then I double knot it on the inside. I kind of like it more on the top of the head more, so what I'm gonna do instead is I'm gonna go out from the inside, and we're gonna come up right at the very top of the bobbles, right there. So see how there's like kind of two stitches right there and right there? That's where I want to come out here and go into right there. Okay, so I'm going to start right here. And you can do it twice. You can do it 3 times. The more times you embroider, the more like detailed the nose is going to be. So let's go ahead. We'll just repeat it once. So we'll come out there and we'll come back in. So I think one actually does look pretty good, but let's go ahead and do it twice. We'll go into the same stitch here and come out on the bottom. And there's our little nose, which I think is pretty cute. The reason I like it on the top there is because when he's sitting down, it makes it look like he's looking up more, which is, I think, pretty cute. All right, once you've gone through both of those, we'll just take these two tail ends here and double knot it on the inside. Nice and easy. Just pull through. And you want to pull this tight enough so that it's kind of locked on the inside. You don't need to pull it so tight that it like kind of pulls the face in. You just need to make sure this is knotted enough so it doesn't come undone. So like that should be good. And I'm just going to cut these tail ends nice and close. And then we'll stuff those little ends back in. It's pretty good. And then now the last things we want to do is we want to stuff it and sew it closed. So I'm just going to use these extra threads. With these minigurumis, you actually don't need to stuff it too much. I'm going to use my scissors here to help me stuff my piece up. So because you don't really need to stuff them that much, it's a really good way to use your extra tail ends. So I think we could use just maybe one more tail end here. So let's see what we got. This one will work. So these are just tail ends from a previous project. And I just roll it into a little ball, place it in there. If you want to get fancy with it, you can add a little mini magnet into the base here before you sew it closed, and then it can be like attached to anything metal. Or you can add a little keychain at the top. But let's finish this up by sewing closed. All you need to do is sew closed, thread this end on a needle. And we're just going to go into the front loops of all the stitches around. We're going to go in the front, the first front loop here, and then out of the second front loop here like that. We're just going to do that for all the stitches around. So there's one, front loop, and out the next front loop. There's two, there's three, and the last one's going to be right here, in and out, like that. And then the last thing you want to do is grab the base here and pull it nice and tight to close it up. Go straight back into the center there and come out somewhere on the top of the head. It doesn't really matter where. This is just so we can get it pulled in and cut close. So we're going to pull it tight like this, which will pull the base in a little bit more. And then we could just cut this nice and close like that. And then I like to squish it to get that knot back in the inside. And let's fix these little fins, poke those out a little bit, fix the tail just a little bit, make it more like it's in two different parts. And there we go. We have our little minigurumi seal. How cute. They're so cute, a little baby. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed making it as much as I enjoyed designing it. I love designing these minigurumis. They're so fun, so intricate, so optimized. I'm just really proud of all these minigurumis. If you want to find links to all the minigurumis, like our little hermit crabs, our little squids and crabs, you can find those all at clubcrochet.com/minigurumi or minigurumi.com. If you want to find more of our sandigurumi patterns, like our seagull burb or our giant sea lion or our little seals, you can find those all at clubcrochet.com/Santi. Thank you so much again for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like down below, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Pasta la pizza. Bye. Goodbye. So long. Bye-bye.